Sometimes moving abroad isn't as glamorous as it might first appear.
First 2 years were really hard.
Okay.
We considered leaving several times, but I think a part of what helped us stay was
Meet Arbab, who visited Portugal,
when you come here as a tourist, it's very different because you're going to leave.
but didn't anticipate how hard the cultural differences would be.
Cultural differences, like people yelling at us for...
What was a glaring difference with this move?
We had this huge network of friends, and so if the first 10 people you call aren't busy, you call the 11th, but we don't even have 5 people to call.
Right.
And so that was hard.
So how did he overcome this, and would he decide to leave?
We need to figure out if this third year is going to be spent saying goodbye or like kind of planting roots.
Let's see what he decided. Thanks for joining me today. Let's jump right into it. Why did you move to Portugal?
My wife and I came in 2017. 1 year into our marriage, we came here to work with some friends for 3 months. We stayed just the length of the time that you can stay without needing a visa. It's like a tourist visa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we came in the winter time, which is the ugliest time of year for northern Portugal. It's dreary and wet and cold and super humid. And we fell in love with the place.
That's funny.
It was, it was the culture that did it for us.
Okay.
Because the people here are so warm and inviting and accommodating. And we're originally from Hawaii. And the culture there is also warm and accommodating. And so even though the weather difference was a shock, the culture felt familiar.
Yeah.
And so that made it an easy transition for us.
Okay.
And then we left and went back to Hawaii. And for 3 years, we talked about we should go back. We should maybe consider moving there. And in 2021, we started planning for it. We both said yes in maybe January, and we moved here in October.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's unpack this a little bit.
Yeah.
You moved from Hawaii, very different weather.
Very different weather, yeah.
So let's talk about that first.
Yeah.
How was that adjustment, the weather?
The weather adjustment by itself was a bit of a shock. I mean, Hawaii can get humid, but it's never cold.
Okay, yeah.
And our houses are built for the humidity. And so we were cold, but the inside of our place here was a little bit wet because the place we were renting wasn't very well insulated.
Isn't that odd? You'd think that they would be built for humidity as well up here.
But they don't seem to be.
Right.
And so that was a bit of a shock. Even the place we were staying was a bit nicer, but there was some mold on the walls and things we had to get used to cleaning and being aware of.
Yeah.
And so that was by itself was a big adjustment for us, and bundling up inside the house because we're used to taking our shoes off all the time, and we wanted to continue that.
Yeah.
As like a sanitation thing for us, and we quickly learned we needed to go buy some house slippers and warm socks, and even wear we both had warm leggings we would wear around the house just to stay warm indoors, which was not what we thought would be.
Right.
Yeah.
So weather's very different, obviously, because you're in the north of Portugal.
Yeah.
But you said that culturally the people are very warm, very similar to Hawaiians.
Yeah. They in the north, it can be kind of they seem more rugged, but they're very welcoming. They're very. It's one of the only places I've been in Europe where people say, "What language do you speak?" And they find out it's English, and they want to speak English with you to make you feel welcome and to practice their own English. But it makes life a lot easier coming here as a tourist at the time.
Right.
And then moving back, it helps with some of the language barriers for sure.
Okay, so you came just thinking 3 months. It wasn't scouting or anything. It was just to help friends.
Not at all.
You were newly married at that point. You
Yeah.
went back to Hawaii, started living life, but it kept coming up. Should we move to Portugal?
Right.
So in the meantime, before you moved, what happened in Hawaii that changed?
We both knew that we didn't necessarily want to stay in Hawaii.
Okay.
We were considering maybe the U.S. mainland. We always kind of dreamed about traveling and living abroad. And coming here seemed like a great opportunity. We knew from being here for 3 months it was affordable. We knew we didn't have to have insane incomes to make it here. And so that definitely was a big factor in coming.
Yeah.
And we had our son Enzo was a year and a half around the time a year old when we decided we would come.
Okay.
And we also knew that it's a great place for kids.
Yeah, definitely.
The culture here is so understanding and inviting for children. You know, in the States, even in Hawaii, kids screaming in restaurants, it's kind of like parents feel embarrassed and there's this pressure. But here, even people who don't know you are like, "Oh, don't worry, it's okay."
Yeah.
Like, they want kids to be kids.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's just knowing that was also a factor coming in here.
Right. It's
Yeah.
amazing. They're part of just society, right? Whereas in the
Yes.
States, you feel this like, oh, they can't make noise or they have to
Right,
stay at home so
right.
I can go out. But
Yeah.
here, it's just they're part of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to say it. Children are a part of society here. Small kids, teenagers, they're just a part of how life functions here.
Yes, which
So
is
they're
great.
accepted, which is nice.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you moved with one, but you
Yes.
have another now.
Yeah. I think a month before we left, we found out my wife was 2 months pregnant, which is a
Okay.
big shock.
Okay.
And we didn't know what it looked like coming here. We have friends who have been here for a decade at the time, and they had several kids here, and they said that the experience was okay. It was good. And then when we moved here, we kind of scoped out the hospital. There's a hospital about 10 minutes north of us, and I had to learn how to drive stick.
Okay.
Because my wife, being as pregnant as she was, as it got closer and closer, I still didn't know how to drive standard. And so I had to learn on the fly, like a month before our daughter Mika came along.
Okay.
And so when it came time for the day, I was like, ugh.
That's not stressful
I
at all.
I got it. Right. But we scoped out the hospital, and the hospital that we went to, they're very accommodating and welcoming, and they wanted us to come and schedule a tour to see the hospital, and we unfortunately didn't get to do all that, but it didn't make it too hard when we went in.
Okay.
Lisa got to give birth in a private room, and she basically had a nurse assigned to her who was just around the corner anytime she needed her, and Lisa wanted to do a natural birth without any meds or anything, and they were accommodating of that.
Okay.
And they didn't seem surprised at all.
Okay.
So I've heard of people doing water births there or other things there, and they try their best to accommodate that. But the harder part was after the birth, we were basically forced to stay for 3 days.
They wouldn't let you leave?
They wouldn't let us leave.
Oh, no.
And the room was a crowded recovery area, and we shared a room with 2 other patients, and it was hot.
Oh,
It was very hot. They kept in the States when our son was born, even our hospital room was air conditioned, and they just had like a heater for his mattress or his bed.
Oh,
Or
right.
he was with Lisa.
Uh-huh.
And for our daughter, we were like unwrapping her because she was fresh out, and she seemed like she was overheating. And
Yeah.
there's some cultural differences there where they would never let a baby get cold at all, but we were okay with skin-to-skin contact, and so we had to kind of navigate that a little bit.
Okay. Yeah.
The hospital food was honestly terrible, but
Terrible?
they were okay with. I mean, it's bad in most of the States,
Uh-huh.
but it was exceptionally bad here.
Okay.
To be honest.
Yeah. No,
And,
honesty is key.
Yeah, and but friends were really nice and brought us food, and they were okay about me going and taking outside food into Lisa so we
That's
could
good.
enjoy it. So that was good.
Was it a public or private hospital?
It was a public hospital.
A public hospital.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and
All
so honestly, after getting the bill for my son in the States with my insurance, I was like over $1,000 for what I thought would be cheaper.
Uh-huh.
Coming here and going public, and everyone was very friendly and lovely, despite some of the discomfort.
Yeah.
And I went to go pay the bill on the second day, and they said, "There's no bill."
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it was insane. It blew my mind. And I said, "But I have to pay for like staying here." And they said, "No, they were like, what are you talking about? You don't pay to come give birth."
Yeah.
And so that was a pleasant surprise. Yeah. And I
Okay.
think we would definitely go that route again.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
For
good.
sure.
Good to know.
Just knowing, be ready for a warm room and be prepped ahead a little bit
Yeah.
would be good.
Now
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And do you have to go back there for hospital visits, like for normal baby visits, or did you find something closer?
We were able to find a general practitioner that's basically our family physician.
Okay.
It was a bit of a process to navigate that. You have to kind of get on a waiting list, and the doctor that we go to is about 20 minutes out of town.
Okay.
So it's not too bad.
Not bad. Yeah.
But
But you got to choose, like
been
you end
good.
up going with the one that you wanted, or?
No.
Okay.
If you're in the public system, you kind of can get assigned one.
Okay.
And a lot of the physicians in our town already have a big waiting list, and basically we got shifted to the next availability, next place that had availability, which is out in the country.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which is a common thing in the public system,
quite
right?
common,
because
yeah.
it's a bit,
Yeah,
well,
it's
everyone's
common.
using it, right?
And
so.
I mean, the private system here is so affordable that, you know, if our kids have an emergency, we go there every time because it's so quick and efficient, and it's about $100.
Yeah.
You know, give or
But
take.
it's closer,
and it's close,
faster.
and we don't mind paying because we don't pay any other medical bills.
Right. Yeah.
And so we don't mind running there in an emergency situation where our kids are really unwell.
Right.
You know, figuring out a solution.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so you landed in Villa de Conde, which isn't a super popular place among the expat community.
Right.
So why here?
Well, this is where we came in 2017 to work, and we loved it so much we didn't look for anywhere else.
Okay.
We just said we're going to come back. We already had friends from our previous visit, and Portuguese and expats, and we just wanted to plug back in. And that really helped because the initial 2 years, we've been here 2.5 years now, and the first 2 years were really hard. We considered leaving several times, but I think a part of what helped us stay was our community. Yeah, the network that we had here, you know. It's a very relationship-based culture, and so many things would have been a lot harder if I didn't have a Portuguese friend who knew someone somewhere or could point me in the right direction. And it's not necessarily, you know, the advice that you're given when you come.
Yeah.
You know, you have all these A, B, C, D things you can do, but then you ask a Portuguese, and they're like, "I'll just ask my cousin."
Yeah.
And they get it done really fast.
Yes.
And that helped a lot.
The connections.
Yeah.
Okay, so what were some things that happened in the first 2 years that had you thinking maybe we should leave?
Well, I hear this said a lot. When you come here as a tourist, it's very different because you're going to leave. So some of the cultural barriers and discomfort you experience is, it's temporary. But coming here within a few months, we had some language under our belt, but not a lot. And you start exploring more, and you go out to somewhere not inside of your comfort zone, and you come across people who don't speak English at all. And that was, a little difficult. But then even just cultural differences, like people yelling at us for letting our kids go barefoot at the park.
Okay.
Or we're warm and our kids seem warm, but people really bundle their kids up in the winter. Whether it's like cool or cold, it doesn't matter.
And they tell you
you should as well. And so it's just adjusting to, one, these people feel comfortable enough to yell at me. And they're doing it from a place of like wanting to take care of the children they see. Which is, it's sweet, but it's also like,
it can feel offensive,
it can feel very offensive, invasive almost.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like in the States, no one would tell someone else how to parent, especially a stranger, generally. And it was very common. We're used to it now. It doesn't bother me at all. It's endearing to me now. But that took a while. And then I kind of found my niche with a group of like guy friends that were Portuguese and expats. But Lisa, especially right after she gave birth, just felt very isolated.
Yeah.
And that was hard for both of us. We were trying to make sure that she could get time out with friends, but back home, we're both spent our whole lives there, and we had this huge network of friends. And so, if the first 10 people you call aren't busy, you call the 11th, but we don't even have 5 people to call.
Right.
And so that was hard. But we kind of just leaned into the people that we did know, and kind of expressed there's some loneliness, and we need friends to be around for us.
Yeah, and being honest about it.
Yeah, just being honest about it.
We need help, or we need,
Yeah, and again, it's so relational. We have been going to a CrossFit gym for the past 2.5 years, and one of the owners there asked me, "Oh, how's your wife doing? I haven't seen her in a while." And I explained it to him. He was like, "Hey, come, just bring her to the gym when you work out, and let her hang out here. Like, it's a family."
Yeah.
And that helped.
That's sweet.
Yeah. Just coming and being present there, and people, come and play with the kids so she can get a break. And, yeah, it was things like that were big factors in not knowing if we would stay. And also just, I mean, the bureaucracy here is quite slow.
Yeah.
And so it just felt like every little thing we wanted to get done took forever. And I think if you know that's the way it's going to be and you kind of just let go of that expectation, it makes it a lot easier. So that's kind of what we did. We talked a bit and we said maybe we need to just embrace this instead of seeing it as a bump in the road, and just acknowledge and embrace it. And it became a lot thesier.
I think a lot of people don't understand just how crazy the bureaucracy can be, because a lot of people talk about it and they're like, okay, okay, there's going to be problems, but then some people get here and they get really stressed out by it. But I guess when you embrace it.
I was speaking to someone, a Portuguese person, who told me, don't draw attention to the things that aren't working out or that are overdue. For example, my ID being expired, the government extended the validation of the residency visas.
Yeah, you're good till next year.
Right, but she had said the way it works here sometimes is by not bringing attention to some things, you just fly right under the radar and no one cares. And then you, out of integrity, go to say, oh, I want to fix this. And they're like, oh, well, here's a ticket.
Yeah.
Here's a ticket for your honesty.
Yeah.
And then
it's terrible.
It's I've heard stories like that. And so it's just trying to figure out where does the balancing point with all of that. Yeah.
Just a different culture, figuring out how they do it. Yeah. Because you can't think that it's like how it was, in Hawaii, right?
Right. I think letting go of our attachment to how things work back home was key.
That's great, Okay, so a little culture shock at the beginning.
Yeah.
But you've decided to stay, or
right. Yeah,
for now?
Yeah, we gave ourselves 3 years.
Okay.
And had just hit the 2-year mark, and I was putting all kinds of pressure on myself and on Lisa to decide. I said, we need to figure out if this 3rd year is going to be spent saying goodbye or like kind of planting roots. And then I spoke to several people who have lived abroad, and they said, you really won't know unless you let go of that decision-making pressure and really just let yourself live. And they said, you've been there 2 years. Now you have some language under your belt. Let yourself be comfortable for a little bit before you say, oh, we need to know.
Yeah, it's great advice.
And so that was October of last year. And so we said, okay, we're going to do that. And by February, it was a total paradigm shift for us, because I was looking at everything through the lens of, will this work or not? Can we stay or do we need to go? And I stopped doing that and kind of just let myself embrace relationships and
live in a different
and laugh
country?
About things that went wrong and really celebrate every single victory. And there's little victories, just like getting to the hospital and getting through a doctor's appointment in a different language, like things that at home just seem so monotonous, or you don't think about it. We let ourselves like celebrate those wins. And in February we said we would stay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've decided to stay, and now what are you doing?
And now we own a cafe.
So that's a big shift, right?
Yeah,
maybe we'll leave, and now we own a cafe.
Yeah. So my background is as a chef. I went to culinary school and I worked in fine dining in Hawaii, and I actually left that industry because it was too demanding. And I said, if the cost of being successful is not being around for family, I'm not going to pay. And so I walked away from it. And I always said the only way I'd ever go back to cooking is if it's something that I have control over, that I own. In May of last year, maybe a little sooner or earlier than that, our partners Kevin and Angela, who are from Canada, they started roasting coffee out of their house and selling it as a small business. And they were doing quite well. But early on, they said, hey, we really get along with you guys. Would you want to open a cafe? And I said, are you kidding me? We're barely surviving right now. But they said, no pressure. We'll put it on the back burner, but we want to revisit this with you guys as you figure out if you're going to stay in Portugal or not. And in February, we said yes to staying. And then that week, they sat us down and they said, would you guys still be interested in doing a cafe? We'd love to partner with you guys. We said, okay, we'll do it. We have just be forewarned, we have 2 small kids. We don't know what we can commit, but they didn't care about that. They just wanted to try to do this together.
Great.
And within a few days of that conversation, we were looking at this space that we now own and
Did you only look at one space?
Kevin had checked this space out a couple times.
Okay.
He was really in love with it.
Pre-planning.
Yeah. The timing wasn't working out, and we decided to give it one more look. And this was actually the first place we looked at as a team, and the owners of the hotel that is above our space really wanted to collaborate with us. And part of our desire being in this town is to collaborate and be accessible to locals. And because they had the same desire, they have a co-work space in their hotel, and it's very accessible and inviting for people in the town. We decided, I think we don't need to look at another place.
Yeah, it's a great opportunity.
Right,
you kind of have the same mindset with things, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so they gave us freedom to renovate the whole location, including the garden, and they said, this is yours now. And that was in February, and we opened in May.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's Humble Anchor. You roast here now. Yeah. Everything happens here. You've got the cafe, and you do the chefy side of things.
Yeah. So Kevin's the roaster, and I'm the chef.
Okay.
And that's kind of how our partnership works out.
Yeah.
And our wives keep it all together.
Do the wife thing. Right. This, the organized. Right. Yeah. Are you happy to be back into baking, cooking? What do you do?
Yeah, I do have some background in baking, but I don't enjoy it.
Okay.
And so part of our collaboration effort is a lot of our desserts are made by a woman from Ukraine.
Okay.
That she came here with her family after the invasion, and started baking out of her house about a year ago. And
she lives in Villa de Conde?
She lives in Villa de Conde, yeah. She lives just a 5-minute walk from us.
Okay.
And we had asked her, would you like to take over one of our display cases, and we have like a consignment workout partnership with her. And so she has a space to test stuff that sells.
Yeah.
That's part of our collaboration with her. And then Angela, I do a couple of our muffins. Those were like things that I wanted to work out. But Kevin's wife, Angela does some of the baking.
Okay.
She offered to take over for the baking. I said, yes,
take it. And you're like,
take
ooh,
it.
Yeah.
I'm more of in that sense with those things, I'm more of a quality control. Just using my background to make sure like this is what we want. And that it's kind of to standard, for lack of a better word. And then the rest of the food is just things that I've come up with from my experience. Yeah.
Fun. And then you have some other artisanal type things in the shop, right?
Yeah.
Is that from locals
the whole front end of our cafe is an artisan market, and all of us during our time here have run across different artisans, from leather making to woodworking to pottery, and we just reached out to a bunch of different people and asked if they would like to be in the cafe. And so we have an artisan market in the front that they have all their stuff on display, and an opportunity to get more exposure in a different spot, because a lot of them are located in Porto or further south, and now they have another spot in another town where people can come see their work.
That's great.
Yeah.
And how are locals taking to the cafe?
Quite well.
Yeah, good.
Surprisingly well.
Good.
Yeah, we were warned that it might take a year to really get any traction. And
because the coffee's different.
Right, the coffee's different,
feel.
And there's no roaster here. There's a lot of roasters or roaster cafes in Porto, but nothing like that in Villa de Conde. And we knew we were taking a risk, but we feel like we kind of got right in the front edge of some of that change or opportunity for change. So people have been really accepting, and people come in and they're like, oh, I love coffee. Do you have this kind of coffee or that kind of coffee? And we get to say, yeah, we do. We actually do. And it's all roasted here.
Great.
Yeah. So the people have accepted us well. We have one guy who, our first 21 days, he was here 22 times.
That's funny.
There was once or twice he didn't come, but several times where he came twice a day.
Okay,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Super fan, huh?
Yeah, so he missed 2 days in a row, and we messaged him on Instagram.
Are you okay?
And he was like, I just went on vacation.
Yeah, that's funny.
Don't message me.
Yeah, that's funny though. Yeah, making sure he's okay.
It was good. We had that rapport with him, which is really important to us, is to have a relationship with the community.
Right.
So there's there's a lot of regulars that we know on a first name basis, and we talk about life and we don't just serve them. They feel like our friends, which is what we wanted. Is we don't want it to just be a place to come and relax, which it is, but also a place for friendship and relationship and community.
Community, which is something that you guys really needed in your first couple of years.
And so now we get to offer that to anyone that comes in here.
Amazing. Yeah. Okay, so you went from 2 years maybe leaving to now staying, owning a cafe.
Yeah.
How does that feel?
It feels like a huge victory. It's exciting. It's nerve-wracking in a way, because we dreamed that one day we might own a cafe in Portugal. Then we got here and we said that's never going to happen. And then 2.5 years later, we own a cafe in Portugal. Yeah.
There you go.
And so it's been really good. Yeah, it's exciting, and we feel like it'll be something that lasts a while. Yeah.
Great. Well, at Expats Everywhere, we believe that living abroad transforms lives. So how has living abroad transformed your life?
Oh, I would say to start that it makes you a more accepting person of other people. And so, not to just paint with a broad brush, but I feel like a lot of people I know back home kind of have these ideas of how places in the world work, but they've never been there. And so living abroad kind of gives you, breaks a lot of those barriers. And so you learn that, other cultures don't function the way you do. And you really need to let go of some of that to function well, and even to be a part of the culture that you're in. And I feel like it's made me a better dad. Even understanding that, people operate differently has made me, okay, why is my son behaving that way? And instead of getting upset with him, where I feel like maybe I would have before, I ask, well, what's behind that? Because when you're in a different culture, you always have to ask, well, what's behind that? What's the reason that they do this? Because sometimes something that seems rude is totally innocent.
Right.
Right. And so living abroad has definitely helped me with stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you.
Yeah,
and
thank
if you want to see more about Villa de Conde, then check out this video right here, and don't forget to subscribe. Now let's get moving.